Well, it is the top of the hour, and I want to share a big Management Cues welcome to our participants today in the webinar series, Mastering the Art of Effective Leadership. Today's session explores a snapshot view of what it means to foster creativity and innovation through leadership. I'm Marisa Stoltzfus, your HROD executive expert, bringing you more than 25 years of experience, and I have the privilege of hosting this webinar series. In our previous webinar series, The Art of Effective Management, we focused on those functions that contribute to high-performing managers. The Art of Effective Leadership takes the manager's skills to the next level, providing the crossover and differences between managing work and leading people. In this series, we'll share bits of knowledge, some tips, and a few tools that will help you navigate the differences between managing and leading. While this series is not a comprehensive training program, we will explore the various functions of leadership and share a few takeaway ideas for you to consider in your professional journey. Feel free to participate actively by entering questions or comments in the chat during this session. Now, here's Dr. Myra Austin, CEO and founder of Management Cues, to walk us through today's content. Dr. Myra, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Marisa. Always a pleasure. So welcome, everybody. We're excited to have you here. We're on the 4th season of our leadership webinar series, so second to last. And we want to welcome you and also share a little bit about the expertise at the table. So both Marisa and I have over 2 decades of experience. I like to dabble in operations and management and consider myself a management champion. So I'd like to advocate and really set our managers up to succeed in the workforce in a unique way. And Marisa has partnered with managers as an HR executive and really stood out to me in partnership in the way that she understands the manager's experience and what they need, but also understands the employer on the opposite end and provides a bridge, right? Which is what an effective and phenomenal HR executive does. So with that said, let's go ahead and start walking through a little bit of who we are. So Management Cues, really briefly, is a management training and development company. And we are unique in that we gauge performance in the training experience, and we're backed by neuroscience. So the way that we trained is a little bit different, and it equates to results. And so we like to always have some evidence behind what we do. But at the same time, we like to promote workforce equity, and we like to make sure that people are really, really authentically set up to succeed. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into the meat of today. So today we're going to be going through fostering creativity and innovation in leadership. So what we're learning in this series is that leadership has 5 different functions that make up effective leadership. And so today we're going to work on that creativity and innovative part of it. We're going to break down the topic, and then we're going to talk through some takeaways and then go through some resources, and I'll hand it back to Marisa at that time for her to close us out. All right, let's go. So in a really fast-paced world that we live in, right, rapidly changing, creativity and innovation becomes an essential element, not only of leadership, but of success. So as managers, knowing how to nurture creativity and innovation in your workplace is going to make you stand out. It's going to not only equip you to succeed, but it's going to allow you to connect with people in a very different way. So leaders who can nurture organizations, who can take them there, are really the ones who are the forward thinkers and the ones who are going to be able to create a competitive advantage, not just for themselves, but for the company as well, and everybody that makes part of that organization. So creativity and innovation is actually quite important. And so we're going to take a deep dive into that. So first, as is traditional with Management Cues, we like to start with fundamental truths. And the reason we start that way is because if you can clearly understand something, it's easier to apply, it's easier to train others, it's easier to succeed. So creativity is the quality of thinking of new ideas. Innovation is the act of executing those creative ideas. And so that distinction is important because as managers, you want to get a good footing for what you're doing and what your end objective is. And sometimes making a small distinction can help you get there faster. Any thoughts on that distinction? It gets often confused.
Yeah, first of all, it's a fabulous distinction. But what I'd like to note is that creativity and innovation, the art of pulling ideas from people and the art of using their ideas, is an amazing engagement activity, right? So when we talk about engagement, this is just one way that we can bring people into the fold, have them help the organization grow, and of course, create a workplace culture that's exciting and fun to work in.
Yeah, and the reality is when people are enjoying what they're doing, they're going to be more creative, they're going to be more innovative. And I know that that can be hard when we have technical spaces in the workplace or we have complicated projects, but it can be done if the manager and leader makes it part of the design. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about that too. So this quote, I think, just shows us kind of where we're at. 35% of workers are only given time to be creative at work a few times per year, right? Meaning that, and this is from Gallup, it's an older survey, so it is from 2017, but it'd be interesting to see if that has changed in 2024, now that we're hybrid, now that we have all these new challenges in the workplace. So I intentionally chose this quote because it's a good opportunity for us to ask ourselves as managers and leaders, has it changed for us? Are we making a place, space and time for creativity and innovation to really have a place within our work week, our work year, our quarter, our annual planning? Is creativity, innovation even mentioned at the table? And that's really what this quote said to me. Marisa, any thoughts around this? To me, this is an alarming stat.
Yeah, it is an alarming stat. And we also have to consider that not everybody finds themselves to be creative. And that can be challenging for employees, right? Because some employees will tell you, well, I'm not a creative personality. But this is not just about, taking something out of the air and making something with it. It's about gaining people's ideas, digging deep into their knowledge and their expertise. And so if we're missing out on that, we're missing a huge opportunity to grow a business, bottom
Yeah,
line.
and it comes through problem solving. Sometimes what solves our barriers, what moves us through our challenges is somebody else's lens. And so that's part of what Marisa's communicating. So she's spot on there. So here are 6 reasons why leaders need creativity and innovation in the workplace. So as a leader, you definitely need it as a component of leadership. As a manager, here's why it should matter to you, right? So the traditional workplace is gone. So one, workplace environments have permanently changed forever. So you need creative people and innovative people, and having those types of environments exist around you. AI is here, right? We're talking a whole revolution around who does what and how they do it. Sustainability and social responsibility are forcing businesses to rethink their business models, right? Continuity looks a lot different for businesses now, and companies are facing changes in core values and operations. So people are seeing a disconnect between what they believe in, what they agree with, and who they want to work for. And so managers and leaders, you're creating these environments, you're engineering them, you're part of what makes it worthwhile for employees a lot of the time. Businesses need to be more agile to respond to threats and opportunities. So threats and opportunities are always a dynamic in the business world. That's not new. But what makes you capable of conquering these areas faster is having creativity and innovation at the table. So if it's not part of what you're incorporating in your meetings and your strategy sessions, if you're not having strategy sessions, that's the kind of stuff you want to think about, because you're missing out on a better, happier, more dynamic workplace. And businesses will need to learn and to embrace change. So talking through change, talking through ideas, getting people excited about change helps you work through change faster. more effectively and more successfully. Any thoughts on the 6 reasons here?
Yeah, bottom line, it's all about change. We don't stand still. It's not human nature to stand still. So we've got to get really good on managing that aspect of change, the communication, the performance management, the education and training of it, and bring it all together. So well done, well said, Dr. Myra. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So here are the questions you guys can ask yourselves, right? And this is to gauge the degree of creativity and innovation in the workplace. So this is a great list for you to take back and ask your manager, speak to your leaders about it, right? But this really carves out a competitive advantage through the creative and innovative space. How does your company define creativity and innovation? And that question is really important because if they don't define it at all, then there's really no place for it. And so you want to start there. How do I want to define what type of creativity and innovation is acceptable for my team in the workplace, right? What does innovation and creativity look like and feel like in the environment? Is there a designated time when you do it? Is it a specific way where you incorporate this creativity and innovative opportunity for your employees? Is your time more focused on generating ideas or finding solutions? So this is an important distinction because when you're generating ideas, you're bringing newness, you're inviting creativity in. When you're solving problems, it's usually due to bottlenecks and things that are barriers in the environment that you're looking to solve for. Both are necessary, both are good, but making the distinction is important. Does your leadership team see themselves as innovators and creators? Right? So that'd be a good question to pose to your leadership team or your management team. Do we see ourselves as innovators and creators? To Maurice's point, we have, team members out there, leaders, managers who don't think they're creative, but creativity is not necessarily art, right? It's not necessarily that's not what creativity and innovation is. It's not that siloed. It's not that small. It's creativity in the form of many different ways. And so how we see ourselves sometimes can limit us in how we participate in that space. And so telling ourselves we're not creative, telling ourselves we're not innovative, we're already closing that door on ourselves, right? And that's an example of if you're doing that to yourself, you're doing that to your team too, right? And failure is a component of creativity and innovation. Okay. So failure is a part of the successful equation. So how does your company treat and deal with failure? Because if it's punished, right? If it's something that's disciplined or frowned upon, or if it's something where it's not safe to fail, then there's not going to be a place for creativity at the table or innovation either, because people are going to be too scared to take a risk. Any thoughts on that piece, Marisa?
I've worked for companies where pointing blame is like the primary way to manage a mistake or a failure. And quite honestly, like there's so many good things and ideas that come from failure, right? I mean, look into history. I mean, people have inventors have failed multiple times until they've come up with something that we can use and work with. So embrace it, find a way to learn from it, and go from there.
Yeah, and that's true of athletes too. So, use this checklist to ask those questions. It'll give you a better feel of how you really are handling creativity and innovation in your space or in the environment. And maybe that's the starting point of a good, healthy conversation. But the other thing too to think about when it comes to failure is blaming is not discipline, right? So it's just a poor behavior, and it doesn't amount to a successful outcome. So if you are experiencing blame in the environment, either you're doing it or somebody's doing it in the environment, keep that in mind. Redirecting that to something that's more constructive lends to a better outcome overall, even when it comes solely to performance. Okay, so how to empower innovation. So here's how you can empower innovation in your space as a manager and a leader. You want to define creativity in the workplace. So that's the reason the prior question was so important, is because you want to give people a sandbox to play in. You want to tell them what it looks like. You want to tell them what's okay, what's not okay, if there's certain considerations of time or budget, whatever it might be. but you want to give them a sense for, we do have a place for it here, right? That's what helps people gain confidence and kind of meet that confidence gap and jump into innovation and creativity. Integrate creativity into day-to-day interactions. That's either like in your check-ins or in your one-on-one meetings or in any group events. Incorporate some of this creativity and innovation in there. Encourage diverse perspectives. Encourage everyone to say something, to speak up, to have a suggestion or speak to something that they like or dislike. Start with a very basic type of prompts and people will get you there. Provide autonomy, right? Let people independently work on something creative or innovative. Provide flexibility, right? So it's important if you're saying, oh, we love people being creative and innovative here. You don't want the behavior to be contradictory and then you not give them any time to do that, because then it's unrealistic. It's lip service, right? So you want to stay away from that. And then promote inclusive decision making. If there's something that you're doing that's new, that's a change, include others in the decision making process. And then create a psychologically safe, calculated risk taking environment, right? If you're going to allow some risk, there's going to be some failure. And so there has to be some language, some prompting around that encourages people to try. Any thoughts around that, Marisa?
Yeah, start small. Ask questions like, well, if you were in charge, how would you manage this? Or what other ideas do you have? Or call people out specifically, use their name, say, hey, Dr. Myra, I'm challenged on a solution here. What do you think? Right? That's how we start small and build upon a work environment where people will feel comfortable sharing their ideas, being creative, and eventually innovating for the business.
Oh, agreed. And the prompts she gave you guys they're so good because they're not intimidating. They're not necessarily putting people on the spot. It's more of, can you help me with this? And then people slowly start to open up. It works really well, especially if you have a reserved group or a group that has personality styles that aren't assertive or dominant. So great feedback there. So here are 4 factors that affect innovation. So personal factors, contextual factors, management factors, and organizational factors. So these are the factors that you want to look for in an environment to see if there's an impact on the innovation and creativity that you need. Okay, so personal factors refer to values, skills, abilities, personality traits, and communication styles. So these are the things that are going to impact the creativity and the innovation in your space. So you want to keep an eye on those things and just have a feel for, do our values speak to creativity and innovation? Do we have a skill set for somebody in the group that actually is really good at generating new ideas or opening up the dialogue, right? Like that's what you're looking for there. And then personality traits, we have personalities that are really extroverted and we have personalities that are not, right? And you want to include everybody because the quality of idea doesn't necessarily come from a personality type, right? There's plenty of amazing people out there that contribute creatively and innovatively regardless of their personality type. And then communication style, right? Knowing how to approach somebody is everything to get the outcome that you want out of that exchange. So Marisa's feedback was perfect there as to how to approach kind of a good approach that would fit everybody, right? So contextual factors. So that refers to the physical environment around you and the leadership styles that are present in that environment. Okay, so that is really, it affects creativity and innovation because based on the culture, the environment that you have there, that's what's going to determine what's acceptable and what isn't. Okay, so management factors. Okay, so for my managers out there, we're talking about management practices, right? How you handle operations and execution. We're talking about management style and we're talking about management training, right? If you don't know how to facilitate innovation and creativity in the group, that's going to stifle the group. You're not going to be able to lead them through a session of innovation or creativity or get to the point of what you want them to draw out, right? So organizational factors, that's project development climate, communication throughout the organization, team spirit, bureaucratic structure, how problems are solved, and how team members are developed. So all of these things actually impact innovation and creativity in the environment. And I could just see Marisa's facial expression. So any thoughts around how this either helps or hurts creativity and innovation?
Well, the bureaucratic structure is the one that made me smile, right? Because how things get done in an organization will either stifle or support. So, creativity, for example, I worked for a company that was promoting creativity and innovation, right? But there were 7 layers of leadership to get to an approval before I could be creative or innovative, right? So, the bureaucratic structure just didn't support the idea of creativity and innovation. So it's really important to be thinking about the structure of your organization, the design, how the departments work, how the departments work within the larger functions within the organization, et cetera. And you have to chip away.
Yeah, and great example, right? And if you're in a highly bureaucratic environment, here's what I would say. It is hard to change, especially if you're talking about a larger company, but you can be a game changer by posing interesting questions, right? So a good question is, did you know that going through this many steps actually stifles our problem solving ability or our creativity, right? It's okay to say that. That's not insubordinate. What would lend to our creativity more would be X, right? Sometimes leaders aren't aware. Yes, it's true. Some leaders are poor leaders and they don't care. So that happens too. But you, as a competitive individual and manager in that space, you can make a difference, especially for your team, and for yourself as well, to be happier, right? To have a disposition of, I know the difference of doing it well, and not, right?
Even asking, hey, I know we have to go through a number of approvals to get this through. How can we expedite the approval process so we can move this through a little bit faster, right? Just a simple question like that can help get you where you want to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Our sessions are always really short and sweet. But these are the key takeaways around inspiration, innovation, and creativity as a leader, right? You have to know that there's a difference between creativity and innovation as a manager. It's critical to the leadership component of your role. It also allows you to know what you're doing and what you're working on and what you're trying to get out of your team. I think it's a great idea for you to make this distinction to your team and educate them, right? Because then they know if they're contributing to the appropriate degree or not, which in my experience is a common opportunity. A lot of the time people don't know the distinction. And so when they're delivering on something, they're not coming to the right deliverable because they don't know that there's a difference between being creative and being innovative. So just to reference back, creative is coming up with the idea. Innovative is actually executing on that idea. Okay. So creativity is different from innovation. Creativity and innovation are necessary to keep up with the changing business world. So as a manager, if you're going to be competitive, have a component of not only adaptability around change, but creativity and innovation in how you execute your management. Okay. There are 4 factors that typically affect creativity and innovation in the workplace. And this is really important because if you can speak to these factors, to your executive leadership, to the leadership team, if the question of innovation and creativity ever comes up, right, where an executive says, we need to be more creative, we need to be better problem solvers, we need to, whatever. You are now equipped to say, okay, we have to look at these factors first. Because in order to be successful with that, you're going to have to look at these factors. So they're personal factors, contextual factors, management factors, and organizational factors. Okay, so make sure you have those on a quick checklist. And when you're prompted to kind of step into that space confidently, you know what to look for. Okay, all right, back to you, Marisa.
All right. Well, as we conclude today's session, of course, I encourage you to consider one attribute on the topic of fostering creativity and innovation where you excel and leverage that leadership skill while considering which creativity and innovation takeaway you'd like to foster or further develop. To help you revisit this content, the recording of the webinar and the deck will be emailed to all participants in follow-up. So stay tuned for that. You can also find additional resources, including management planners and other tools to support your ongoing development. Check us out at www.managementcues.org. Our final session for Mastering the Art of Effective Leadership is scheduled for next Tuesday, June 11th at noon Pacific. We hope to see you there. Connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube to stay updated on all events, to revisit past sessions, submit questions, or to share your feedback. Thank you for joining us today. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye.